Today's episode is brought to you by 9centprinting.com. With over 100 five-star reviews, 9centprinting.com is ready to meet all your printing needs. Are you a church plant or small church with no copy machine? No problem. 9cent Printing has you covered. If you need bulletins, flyers, books, cards, offering envelopes, posters, they do it all. I know the Christian owners of this business personally, and I'm not just a fan, I'm also a customer. Fast, nationwide shipping, affordable, professional, wow printing at wow prices. Check them out at 9centprinting.com. Hey, welcome to the Small Town Pastor Podcast. This podcast is a ministry of Small Town Network. We exist to make disciples, train pastors, and plant churches in smaller communities. My name is Eric Nielsen. I'm joined again by our co-host, Tony Colomb. How are you doing, Tony?
Doing wonderful, man. Looking forward to today's conversation.
Is it raining yet on the Oregon coast, or is
Absolutely
it
not? That starts Sunday. It's sunny
Woo-hoo!
today, so let's get this over with so I can enjoy it.
You're on the countdown, buddy. All right. And with us today is my good friend, Nick Duffel. How's it going, Nick?
It's going well, man. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, for sure. For our tens of viewers, I want them to know how I first met you. You were a camp rep from Boise Bible College, and I was a youth pastor at a church in Eugene, Oregon, and you came into our camp. And I remember it being like a very good association. Years later, you told me that I chewed you out for something. And do you remember saying that to me?
I don't remember. I mean, I see it as a positive thing as well. I was very green. I'm glad you brought this up because I was gonna mention our first meeting, but yeah, I was pretty green. I mean, I was just coming out of my freshman year of Bible college and wanting to do youth ministry, and I think what you kind of more called me out, admonished me on something, which was some students came up and asked if they could help out with something that you and I were working on, getting a game ready or something. And I said, no, I think we're good. And you said, don't ever give up an opportunity to invite a student to help out with something and partner with you on something. And so, I mean, I really took that to heart, and I think it was actually a good admonishment. But something like that.
That sounds smarter than I am.
I look back on that particular camp. I mean, I went to probably a dozen camps that summer. And there was certain ones where I got a lot more kind of mentoring. And that was one of them where it was like, I mean, it was an education in and of itself for youth ministry, I think. Probably something youth ministry majors should all have to do, but maybe with more intentionality. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, so it was very formative for me to hang with you at that camp. So
well, thank you. I know we've kind of bounced into each other, ran into each other from time to time over the years. But until I moved to Idaho, I really didn't get a chance to know you very well. And when I came, you were on my short list of guys to connect with. So, Nick, why don't you just tell us just quickly about yourself, like your family, how many kids do you have, all that, your wife, your church, just kind of give us your bio, and then we'll kind of walk you back into your story.
Yeah. So currently, for the past, this is week 4 coming up, the lead pastor at a church called Evergreen Church in Boise, Idaho. And so
I'm sorry, I totally forgot you named your church that. Tony, you got anything you want to share?
Yeah, September 7th, we changed our name to Evergreen Christian Church.
I love that. That's awesome. I mean, it's a good name, dude. It's a good name. I know, totally. No, and I mean, there's the Evergreen Network, and there's lots of great.
But, no, it's funny because we've been stewing on a name change for quite some time because our name was super confusing when we started another location. We were Warrenton Christian Church forever. And then when we started a location in Napa, it's like, we can't be Warrenton Christian Church of that. And we didn't want to be some easy church plant name like New Life Church. So we went with like Christian Church of Warrenton and Christian Church of Napa, and then we merged it into like one name. So it's been Christian Church Warrenton Napa, but people in our own church didn't get it. So it's like we've been stewing on a name change for well over a year. And we landed on Evergreen quite a while ago. And then Evergreen Network announces their Evergreen Network. And then Corey DeForest, who's with us, he was like, "Oh yeah, my friends, they're like doing this thing and they're going to be Evergreen Church." I'm like,
well, that's a confirmation that it's a great idea. It's a great name.
Well, and I mean, if geographically, if you want to talk about who has the most business naming their church that, it's probably you. I mean, you've got
we've got the capital
like where you're located. Yeah, you've got
the real Evergreen.
Yeah, right. There's actually evergreen trees.
There's actually evergreen trees here. Yeah, I don't know why you got that name.
I'm sorry, I got it way off track. So you're a pastor of Evergreen Church that's 4 weeks old.
Yeah.
4 weeks into launch.
4 weeks. Well, yeah, 4 weeks this Sunday. So our launch was just right at the beginning of September, and
congratulations.
So yeah. Yeah, I don't know when this is going to air, but we launched September 7th, and it's been an awesome few weeks so far. My wife is Beth, and we have 4 sons. Wow. The oldest is in college. He's about to turn 20, and then our youngest is 11. And yeah, so we're busy running around, a lot of sports, a lot of activities and things like that, but we love it. And yeah, I've been in ministry for different churches, different roles for over 20 years. Wow. Been married for over 20 years, and so yeah, I'm new to the church planting world. I was in established churches for a lot of years, various sizes, even a lead pastor at a church here in the Boise area for 5 years, and I never wanted to be a church planter. That was for like the
crazy people,
the elite crazy people, the Navy SEALs, and
Navy SEALs of ministry,
and so yeah, it's I love it. Yeah, it's an adventure, and so I never thought that would be me, but it's been a great journey.
You joined the elite club of crazy people. So
yeah,
congratulations. Well, tell us your story. Like, how did you become a disciple of Jesus? Raised in a Christian home? Not like, what was your pathway to?
Where did you grow up? Like all that stuff.
Yeah. I'm actually one of the few Boise natives. There's not very many of us. This area is grown like crazy.
Mostly Californians.
A lot of Californians. And I remember being even in elementary school and meeting people from this far off land of California, and so I mean, so it's not a new phenomenon. It's just an increasing phenomenon.
Yeah.
And but thousands and thousands and thousands of people moving to this area, and so a lot of growth. But yeah, so I'm a Boise native. Grew up here. Went to Boise Bible College for college. I did grow up in a Christian home, and but my mom passed away from cancer when I was 16, and
wow.
right around that same time, my dad left. He had also grown up in church, but it wasn't a thing then, but he kind of deconstructed and left the church for a while, got kind of disillusioned. After that, he came back a few years later. He came back to the church, which was cool, but he left the church, stopped going to church, and so it was my sister and I, for most of my high school, went to church kind of on our own, and didn't have that parental support. Then I went to I came to Christ in my own journey of faith, decision for faith, to follow Jesus at a camp.
Oh yeah.
And to this day, it was Intermountain Christian Camp in Fairfield, Idaho. Yeah. So I love camp to this day. Camp is, I mean, that was where it was like, okay, this has been my parents' thing. Now it's going to be my thing, And so that happened when I was, I think, 12. Yeah. And like I said, kind of a crazy high school time with my mom dying and my dad stepping away from church. And um, I did wrestle with, is this what is this real? Is this what I want to do? And um, be a disciple of Jesus, basically. I had a lot of great mentors through that time and support in church and youth ministry. My plan was to be an engineer and go to Boise State University and be an engineer. And I actually was already all registered for that. And then the summer after my senior year, I went to another summer camp, and God was like, "You're gonna do something different. You're gonna go to Bible college. You're gonna go into ministry. You're gonna do youth ministry." And that was like probably the first time I'd ever heard maybe not the audible voice of God, but the very unmistakable call of you're doing this now. And I wasn't a super bold kid. I was a pretty shy kid. I had to tell my dad, I'm not I'm not going to BSU. I'm going to go to Boise Bible College. And that was a hard conversation. And I had to hold the line and say, God's calling me to this. Like this is what's happening. And so that was tough. And
Was
at the
that
time,
like,
like,
so was that kind of like instantaneous for you? Like you heard that and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do it.
yeah,
Oh wow, man.
yeah, it was. It was
Oh,
like, and it was like 2 weeks till school was supposed to start,
oh
or two or
wow.
three.
Whoa,
And so
whoa.
This
it
major
was,
pivot, yeah.
yeah, major pivot. And it was like, some students, because I'm still involved with Boise Bible College. Some students come in and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to do 1 year, see how it goes, and
Yeah, yeah.
maybe an associate's or something." And I was like, "Nope, 4 years. Here we go. I know what I'm doing. I'm
Mm,
not. And it was youth ministry from day one. I'm all in. Like I said, not maybe a little out of character for me at that point in my life to be that hardcore. And so yeah, it was, and it created conflict in my family for a lot of years
Wow.
before my dad
So
finally came around. But
was that during that period where your dad was kind of in that away from the church?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, it was. And so yeah, I didn't have a lot of support at home, and uh a lot of tough years, where later we were able to reconcile, and it was really great. But for a little while there, yeah, there was a lot of tension. So
Yeah. Okay.
that's really interesting because like we were just talking to Mario, and Mario and I shared, that like both of us were like reluctant pastors, that we didn't really want to be pastors and had to
mm,
kind of do some battling within ourselves to surrender to what we thought,
mhm.
took time for us to surrender to what God wanted us to do. You were like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, I think I had that conflict that you're talking about. I had that over about being a lead pastor,
Oh,
and stepping into the preaching role.
Mm,
Um, I and Mario and I have talked about that before, but I had a little bit more wrestling about that because I had worked for so many maybe dysfunctional or unhealthy lead pastors that I kind of thought
didn't want to be one.
that, yeah, I kind of thought that it's like I kind of felt like it was an inevitability to,
sure.
if you're going to step into that role, then that's kind of
It's gonna
the
make
way
you
you're going to
healthy.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I saw. Unhealthy, and unhealthy and toxic, and even maybe even some abusive stuff too. And it was like, yeah, I was like, I don't want that. And yet again, God was saying, you need to step into this. This is what, and I was like, are you sure? Because um, and yeah, I mean, I still feel that tension to a degree, but I think it's been a cool kind of redemptive process to see, like, God has brought people into my life to say, look, you can do this, and you can do it in a healthy
In a
way.
healthy way.
So
So
yeah,
so you did 4 years at Boise Bible College.
yeah,
And it at some point ended up being like the president of the board, the chairman of the board of Boise Bible College. So that's
yeah,
kind of
that's kind of
fun.
cyeah.
Yeah. So after college, like what were you don't have to say the churches or whatever, but what were the roles that you
Hmm.
played in local churches prior to senior?
Yeah. Yeah, I was at one church. Again, great mentors. I was I worked with middle school students in my first ministry. I had some great people that I worked with for that that really kind of showed me the ropes, um, and not just in youth ministry, but it just in ministry in general. Like here's the piles of poo to not step in, basically, and that was so helpful. Um, and yeah, that was kind of during college, coming out of Bible college. I was in that role. Then I was at another church for 13 years, and youth ministry, children's ministry, family ministry, did a lot of different things there, kind of whatever was needed, and finally ended up doing small groups ministry, like working with adults and that was my first kind of foray into that.
How old were you at
And
that point when you started working with adults?
yeah, so I was probably mid 30s
Okay,
at that point.
kind of normal.
And I can continue to work with students, but in a volunteer capacity. And one of the cool things was getting to step into that role and then handing off the youth ministries that I had been a part of leading, the high school ministry and the middle school ministry at this church, which were both pretty large. And the people that were my successors were both people that had come out of those youth ministries. And
Oh
they'd come out of
wow.
those youth ministries and then they'd gone to Bible college and and come back and been interns and stuff. And so it was pretty cool to work with them, and they were former students. So
That's awesome.
they've since gone on to other ministries, but they're both still in ministry. Are actually all three of them that were working in those capacities. So pretty cool. And yeah, I did adult ministry for a while, and then that's when I stepped away and went to another church in the area and stepped in as in that lead pastor role.
So before you get into that,
But
so let's
yeah,
talk about the transition. What was, because I know there's a handful of youth guys that listen to this. What was
yeah.
what was the difference between working with students and then working with adults? Like, what was like the difference of that? Like when you finally made the switch to from students
Well,
to
I mean, I think yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we did, so like I said, it was a small groups role. And so a lot of our youth ministry was based around groups. And so the mechanics of the ministry uh, weren't that different. I would say, without being too mean, the maturity of the people we were working with in the adult ministry wasn't actually all that different in terms of spiritual maturity, emotional maturity. It's like it's kind of there was a lot of similarities to student ministry, and
That didn't go the
and
direction I thought it was going.
yeah,
Me
yeah.
neither. That's
and
hilarious. I thought you were gonna say
and
like the youth were like less mature, and then you were like, nope.
No,
no,
it's the same.
not really. I mean, not to a degree that was uh like, wow, this is so much easier, no, I mean, it was the same kind of stuff. And I would say in some ways it was more difficult because students will kind of go with the flow more. If you say, hey, this is what we're doing, and they're like, cool, I led mission trips throughout the years, and it's like, man, I love taking students on mission trips because you know
Jump
they'll
in.
pay attention, they'll listen, they'll take things to heart. And adults, you kind of have to do a little more,
Mm,
uh, maybe you're a little more earning. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but I think a lot of times the stereotypes people have of working with youth, there's a lot more wet cement there. If that makes sense.
sure.
And so yeah, it was I would say it was tougher. It was way more uphill to do adult ministry and help people take those steps that were important steps. And also, I mean, students are just like, if you have a student who has leadership gifts and speaking gifts, and you're like, hey, uh why don't you go ahead and you know take this lesson or take leadership of this thing or whatever, they're way more excited to just jump in and start doing it.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's harder with adults. They've got more walls up about that stuff. So yeah, so
Got
some of the
free will
differences.
and resources, like they can do whatever they
Yeah,
want. And if they
yeah,
don't like, they'll just switch churches. Kids
yeah,
don't usually
yeah,
get that.
exactly.
They don't usually get
Yeah.
that option if their parents.
So seeing that and experiencing that, then is that part of like the longer drawn out wrestling of transitioning to the lead pastor role versus getting into ministry to begin with?
Probably. I mean, I think that yeah. Now that you mention it, I think there was. I mean, it was the unknown
Mm,
versus the known as well. Like it's like I know how to do this. Like I know how to go into an environment and help build a ministry up, and
right.
the next steps to take. And it was pretty intimidating stepping into that lead pastor role. And then it was um, way more intense than I expected stepping into that lead pastor role in terms of you're just kind of out on a limb. Like there's not as much
Mhm.
insulation,
Mhm.
as being in the staff role. And so a lot more critique and um,
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, it's like, wow. I mean, just being in that role of like, okay, I got to make decisions, and these decisions have really huge ramifications. But I think youth ministry prepared me for that, though. Honestly, like um, in a lot of ways, it was a good training ground. So yeah, if there's people listening to this who are wondering if they should step out, one of the biggest factors for me was I knew if I stepped away from the staff role of leading the youth ministry, that there was people that were going to pick that up.
Mhm.
Mm,
And it was kind of like a easy decision in that way of like, hey, what you need right now is for me to get out of the way of this. And then this other role needed a person. So it wasn't, and that one wasn't a lightning bolt from the sky like
Sure.
like other moments have been, I don't think. But yeah.
so you go from a church where you played multiple roles, larger church, multiple
hmm
roles, 14 years. Lots of long, is 14 years, is that right?
Yeah, 13 years, 13 and a half, something
13.
like that. Yeah.
So long tenure at this church. And then
hmm
you take the plunge into senior leadership at not a small church, right? At that time, wasn't a small church.
No, the church I stepped into was 400 or 500.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah. How'd you like it? How'd you like doing senior ministry? We talked a little bit,
It
but
was it was good. I think, and again, I know this has kind of been a theme, but good. I would say good mentoring, in terms of the person who, this isn't always the case, but the person who was stepping out of that lead pastor role invited me, like it was a good transition. It wasn't a hey,
nice.
it wasn't a like I'm gone, or a church is like, hey, we've been looking for years for somebody. Will you just come do this or whatever?
Right.
It was a good transition. I wish it would have been a little bit longer.
Oh,
I think it would have been cool, especially with the church. I don't know, because it's my only time, but I know that's not a small church, like you said. There's a lot of dynamics there,
Right.
and I think had the church had the capacity for me to come in and spend a little more time on staff
Mm.
and have it was like a 2.5 month transition, and I
Mm.
came in, and it might have even been less than that, actually. And it's like, man, that was way short. Like I had a lot more to learn,
Mm.
and a lot more trust to build, and uh and so that was kind of hard. Um and uh, and so that's what I would have loved to have, and what I did get from that transition was great. The mentoring, the investment, it just needed to be longer.
Mm.
yeah.
And so I mean, I have ways I would, if a church asked me like, hey, how would you do this? I have some things I would maybe advise them in. But
So if we're
um
understanding correct,
Yeah.
the other guy was there when you came on and you guys did like a
mhm.
process of a
Yeah, we
handoff.
crossed over. I want
Okay.
to say we crossed over, like it was like I can't remember if it was a month
Mm.
and a half or 2 months, but it
Mm.
was not long. It was weeks, and I think it could have
Oh,
been it could have been cool if it was 6 months.
okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, in a way, that's like I know some people are like they don't want any part of something like that. They want a clean break and just a fresh start. And but man,
Hmm.
I think if it can be done well, there's so much advantage to like that the baton being
Hmm.
handed as
Mhm.
close opposed to like a break and then like this long period of searching for a new pastor and all that puts
Hmm.
people through. If there can be a handoff in it with it's charitable and good natured, and it can really be a better transition, I think, than we often see. So you stayed at that church where you were a senior pastor for how many years?
It was 5 years.
Okay, 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometime during that process, you said, we referenced this off the recording,
Hmm.
um, that you wanted to be a church planting church. Is that right?
Yeah. So, that's a funny story because, the beginning of 2020, I mean, how many churches were doing their like 2020 vision series or whatever, like there was a lot of churches doing that, right? And we were one of those. And so, the discovery process for that vision, one of our, we had four initiatives, I think, but one of them was multiplication. So it wasn't just church multiplication. It's like we wanted to see, multiplication at all these different levels in the church. And so we didn't know what that meant, what that looked like. The church I was at was a church plant. Had
Mhm.
I was the third um, pastor of that. Celebrated our 20-year anniversary while I was there. And yeah, it was. So I mean, it was kind of in our DNA, and we'd been part of kind of helping through networks like launch some other churches, but it was like we want to bring in somebody maybe and send them. What does that look like? And so of course then that's the beginning of 2020, and then of course we went through COVID, and that was so destabilizing for so many people. But in the midst of that is when Mario Romero and his wife Jamie came to Canyon Springs, kind of in the midst of that. So Canyon Springs is the church that I was at during that time, and
Mhm.
and um, and they really were drawn in by that vision. That was one of I think the main reasons that they ended up kind of sticking with us.
Okay.
And then not long after that, able to come into a staff role. And he and I talked a lot about, that I don't think it was said publicly, but like this could be a role that is like you're here, but we're planning to send you out. And so a few months after that, it might have been a couple of years even. We did church planning assessment that we hosted at the church, and Mario and Jamie went through that, and they assessed well, and we were getting ready to send them out when uh, some things uh, some things got kind of tough at the church,
Yeah.
as they often do. I even think some things from kind of COVID and going through all that kind of came to a head, even though it was years later. And Mario ended up through that he ended up stepping away from the church, and then not long after that, I did as well. Um, but God in His goodness, like still made a way for that church that Mario and Jamie were kind of working on planting. Still got to happen, and that was really cool.
Yeah, so
And
20
yeah,
2020, dude, like just to say, so 2020, you cast a vision of church planting, and
yeah,
here we are in 2025, and you are a church planter.
yeah. I know it's crazy.
That's amazing. That's amazing,
Yeah,
man. You had no
yeah.
idea, did you? Like that was what was gonna happen.
No, no, no. And I mean, and like I said, I mean,
That's
and
fantastic.
uh, I name dropped the church, just Canyon Springs, to say, I mean, there's things are still going great with Canyon
Yeah.
Springs, and I love that church. And it's kind of one of those things where it felt horrible at the time, some of the stuff we were going through, but out of it has come two more churches, what Mario's doing in the area here, and then Evergreen a couple years later. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. I do think going through that process, walking through that process with Mario as they were praying through it, and kind of seeing what all was involved, opened up my eyes to that world a little bit more. And I was part of that assessment. I was, part of the team that was kind of assessing Jamie and Mario. And so being kind of on that side of things, and I'm like, oh, this is like a little bit different maybe than what I was expecting. And it was exciting, and a part of me that I never thought would be excited about planting a church, all of a sudden I was kind of like, well, maybe, And I mean, honestly, in the midst of going through all that, I was like, do I want to do this again? Go to an established church and turn the ship and cast vision, and or do I want to or do I just want to start from scratch?
Dude, I'll tell you.
So I gotta add that element to it as well.
When we reached the conclusion after 17 years that it was time for us to move, I thought about going to an established church for about 30 seconds. Then I was like, no way. Not interested, not doing that. Well, listen, that's a great, why don't we kind of wrap there for episode 1 here? Because that'll be a great segue into like your actual church planting story. And we obviously want to hear all about that and how that's going and how it got started and all that. So why don't we do our wrap up here, and then we will start again for our next episode. So, hey, thanks for listening, everybody. Be sure to check out our sponsors at 9centprinting.com. If you like what we're doing, please hit like or subscribe wherever you watch or listen. And if you're interested in the Small Town Ministry, Small Town Network Ministry, you can find us at smalltownnetwork.com. You've been listening to the Small Town Pastor Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by 9centprinting.com. With over 100 5-star reviews, 9centprinting.com is ready to meet all your printing needs. Are you a church plant or a small church with no copy machine? No problem. 9 Cent Printing has you covered. If you need bulletins, flyers, books, cards, offering envelopes, posters, they do it all. I know the Christian owners of this business personally, and I'm not just a fan, I'm also a customer. Fast, nationwide shipping, affordable, professional, wow printing at wow prices. Check them out at 9centprinting.com.